Hey everybody, who's your Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 8 of season 1 of Agent Carter called Valediction. And hopefully that this show will be getting a season 2. It hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but very much all signs point to yes at this point. And deservedly so. Agent Carter has been a pretty darn solid story this whole time. It's had its flaws, but all in all, it's been good TV. So let's just kind of get what's going on in this episode, and let's just kind of start with the characters, and then we'll talk about the plot. So Dr. Froheim, like whatever, evil Russian scientist guy. I can't remember how to exactly say his name. You know what? I'm just going to call him Dr. Faustus because that's his counterpart in the comics. So we finally get to find out just why it is that he wants to kill Howard Stark, and it's the whole, well, you're indirectly responsible for the death of my brother, and, I mean, it's not terribly original, but, it gets the job done. But what's really cool here is when he's got Howard prisoner and is talking to him, explaining, like, why it is that he wants to kill him, Howard goes, I'm not a bad man. And Faustus lays into him, yes, you are. And this is the key to why his hypnosis works on Howard. Because on some level, Howard believes that what Faustus is saying is true. He believes that he is a bad person for what he's done with Midnight Oil, and probably on some level for the way he sort of uses and discards women among his other litanies of sin. Litanies of sins. Litanies? Whatever. And of course, this all plays into Howard's biggest regret in his life is that he was unable to save Steve. And I absolutely love that jig sequence because even when Howard is dreaming about rescuing Steve, he still sort of plays himself off as the hero. The way Peggy sort of like goes, "Oh, Howard, please save Steve." Now, come on, if Howard had any real idea of where Steve Rogers is, Peggy wouldn't just stand there at the airport and wish him well as he heads off. She'd be there in the plane with him. She'd probably be the one flying the plane, and he'd be the one in the back seat. But Howard is Howard, and it is the 1940s. Well, no, it really all is. It is all about Howard's ego. But definitely that scene with him, sort of talking to Peggy on the radio, and just all the tension with whether or not Jarvis is going to shoot him down. I mean, that was great stuff. You really do see a lot of Tony in there. The flawed guy who, underneath it all, is genuinely a good person trying to do good in the world. And it's that desire to do good, to atone for past mistakes, that also really kind of plays into what Faustus does against him. And, it just really is a well-executed, genuine moment in the storytelling. And, of course, it was also fun earlier watching Howard torment Thompson by making him praise him like that in public. That was pretty hilarious. And I suppose this would be as good a place as any to start talking about Thompson. And for the vast majority of this episode, Thompson was doing fine. I mean, it was great to watch him, kind of get just in misery of having to publicly praise Howard Stark. His trying to take down Dr. Faustus didn't quite work out that well for him, but he gave it the old college try. And then we kind of come to the whole thing at the end where Thompson just goes and takes credit for everything that Peggy has done. I literally was watching that scene and said, wow, fuck you, Thompson, out loud when I saw that. So, yeah. It's even sad that he and Peggy have had that kind of bonding moment. She's the only person he ever told that great dark secret to. She's saved his life. And as has been heavily implied, was it Rooney, I guess it was, that he has a thing for Peggy as well, and then he goes and does this. I mean, wow, what a dick. And the sad thing is, though, that the other guys at the SSR are probably going to kind of go along with Thompson's story, even after they all kind of gave Peggy that really great, hand clap, way to go, Peggy moment. I really think, just to sort of go along with the official story, because, well, Peggy being the one who saved the day is going to kind of also make all of them look bad. So it's just going to be kind of one of those, yeah, hey, sorry, Peggy, you know how it is kind of things. With D'Souza being the sole exception. And yeah, I definitely like that moment where D'Souza pulls out the earplugs after having taken down Dr. Faustus. That was pretty cool. So give D'Souza credit. He's got to the point where he genuinely views Peggy as an equal now, not some woman on a pedestal like she criticized him earlier. Took down Faustus, survived being attacked by a Black Widow. Again, no mean feat. And all in all, seems to have come along this episode as being a decent guy. So points to him. Nothing huge to say about Jarvis this episode, although that scene with him possibly being forced to kill his boss, one of the people he most respects in the world, that was also nicely handled. As was his obvious genuine happiness of being able to let Peggy and Angie move into one of Howard's old places. I mean, obviously, Jarvis was genuinely really pleased to be able to do something really nice like this for people he could tell are genuinely good folk. Let's see. What else? Yes, of course we got to talk about Dottie. Now, Dottie's really interesting. In a way, she kind of reminds me of sort of the relationship in the comics that Natasha Romanoff has with Yelena Belova, who is sort of her replacement as Black Widow in Russia. But what's interesting here is Dottie is, her whole thing of like, I used to be so jealous of girls like you. Now, we never really get a clear meaning as to what she's talking about there. I kind of assume it means girls who grew up not having to be handcuffed to beds. And, I guess it's just sort of maybe she resents just how well adjusted Peggy is. Of course, Peggy is very close to being what Dottie is. And yet she definitely probably had a reasonably decent and happy childhood. So if you look at it like that, then in a way the Black Widow program is unnecessary. All that suffering and death those little girls go through is unnecessary because you can crank out people who are just as good without all that misery and death. So if you look at it like that, then yeah, Dottie does have some reason to be resentful. And I did like that she survived to haunt Peggy another day. An evil counterpart to the hero is always a fun thing to play around with. I personally always love stuff like that. And let's see, what else? Oh yeah, of course we have to talk about Peggy herself. And again, as a wrap up for her season, this was a pretty good episode. And the season as a whole was very strong. There's just one thing that really kind of bugs me. And that's at the very end, she says to D'Souza, after he's saying, like, wow, those guys are dicks for taking all the credit. She's like, oh, whatever, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. And yet, when Howard is flying the plane and, about to inadvertently destroy New York, Peggy goes, no, Howard, you can't do this. You're the only person that believes in me. Well, okay, Peggy, which is it? You don't care what anybody thinks of you, or you care what Howard Stark thinks of you. Because all of your actions this entire season have played very heavily into the idea that you care what Howard Stark thinks of you. Now, okay, maybe I'm splitting hairs a little bit here. Maybe it was more like, I don't care what anyone at the SSR thinks of me. But, yeah, be specific, Peggy. Be specific. Nothing particular to say about Angie this episode. Just that I hope if they do get a season 2, and I have every reason to believe the show is going to get a season 2. It's really been embraced by the fans, and well deservedly so. But in any case, I definitely would like to see more of Angie. She's kind of that nice common sense street perspective that down to earth, the down to earth person that can really play off well somebody who deals with such craziness on a regular basis like Peggy does. And oh yeah, going back to Peggy for a moment, I definitely liked how this episode kind of ended with her pouring Steve's blood into the river, and letting go of Steve. Like this is what she says to Howard Stark. That's kind of been the big journey for Peggy this season. Getting her to the point where she can let go of Steve and move on with her life. And I have to say that was really well done. I have the feeling that season 2, should we get that, Peggy will be in a place where it's like, okay, Steve is always going to be this presence in her life. Someone whose memory is a guiding force and a source of strength, but she's not going to let his memory rule over him. She's going to be out there doing her own thing, probably being willing to get back out in the dating pool, yada yada yada. And let's see. What else? Yes, of course we have to talk about the ending where Dr. Faustus meets Armin Zola. And of course Zola was Red Skull's minion, and more or less you could sort of interpret him as the guy who probably founded Hydra as we've saw it in Winter Soldier and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Or maybe sort of the guy who was the keeper of the torch for a while. But in any case, Zola is definitely Red Skull's successor, and him and Faustus teaming up to eventually help. Well, I guess you kind of depends on where you go. Like either revive or rekindle Hydra into what it will ultimately become. Well, I mean that's really cool. And just stop and think about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like this last season, and then now that what we know, given that Dr. Faustus was part of the founding, I guess you could say, or one of the early leaders of Hydra. I am happy to comply. Remember that from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder. And yeah, that's all I can really think of to say about this episode. Again, good episode, good season. I am totally down for more Agent Carter next time. So until next time, guys, as always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.